Joe, what are the elements in your, from doing so much guitar building,
Mm-hmm.
what are the key elements that make a great tele?
A great player.
Forget that. That you don't want anything to do with that. That's not going to do anything.
So guitars are looks, sound, and playability. And so we can at least break them down into those three things. Looks is not uncomplicated in that the amount of finish you put on starting even with the wood you choose is has a visual impact but also sound impact. We all love Brazilian rosewood because it has a sound, but when they started using it in the first place, Brazilian rosewood was a wood that was used in furniture and in tables and because it was really a beautiful hard wood, and the idea that it would be the go-to dream wood of the 2000s, this millennia, it was not necessarily part of it. So there's the wood. Swamp ash is not an attractive wood. It's just a wood. Telecasters is made by Fender were just picnic tables. When I started building guitars in the 70s, Schecter and some of these companies were building these really beautiful hardwood, walnut and zebra wood bodies, and they sounded terrible. They were too hard, too heavy. So looks has several elements. One, the wood, and secondly, certainly the finish. And what has been realized, what I think people didn't know when I first started building, and I discovered by accident, was that less finish tends to let a guitar open up. I discovered by accident. I was making a prototype instrument where I could take my bender, which I was testing, and quickly put it in a guitar, and then quickly take it out. And so I made this body. I accidentally bought lightweight ash. And swamp ash, by the way, is just ash, but it happens to grow in a wet climate, wet location, so that it grows quite quickly and is light and thin and soft. So there is no swamp ash other than the ash grown in swamps, essentially. Anyway, I just happened to buy this piece of lightweight ash at the hardware store. It was, 3/4 of an inch thick. I was putting it together front to back, and it sounded like $1 million. And I thought, well, I'll finish this guitar. So, because I could screw the front to the back, through the pickup holes. And so I finished the guitar and I painted it, and, the coffee table finish that was popular at the time, and then put it back together again. And I took it over to Bill Hullett, who's been my tele mentor over these years. And we played it, and it just sucked. It's like, I swear, at the house, this was great. So I took it home, and I stripped it down again, because it was pretty obvious. I changed one thing at a time, which is a great principle.
Yeah.
You change two things, you'll never know what's what. So I stripped it down, and came back to life. So I learned that thin finishes counted. So
thin finish.
Generally, thin finish.
Generally speaking, thin finish is the way to go.
Because it's a filter.
Yeah.
And so there's probably some woods that if you put a big, thick, heavy finish on, you're taking that parametric of finish and pulling stuff down. And so when you look at how good the Fender relics were, which Vince Canetto did, a reason they were great guitars is that they couldn't put much finish on, because if they wanted to torture them, they had to torture them through a thin finish, or they just couldn't do it. And same thing, everybody's talking about how great the Gibson Tom Murphy Labs guitars are, which they are. By the way, I can make jokes about this because I played in a band with Tom Murphy for years. So no, it's the thin finish.
It's thin finish.
Yeah.
That's what does it.
You make the same guitar. You can put the same braces and everything into something else, but the thin finish is a giant advantage.
What's not needed? Like, I've heard you say that tuners on the guitar, unless they're really, really bad, basically make zero difference. Is that true?
Very few tuners lose tune.
Lose tune.
Yeah. You can put tuners on badly. The relationship between the neck and the body, all these things affect the sound. Pickups, I always tell people that if they're going to buy an electric guitar, go play it acoustically. Go into Guitar Center or wherever you're going to go, or say Music City Vintage, and sit down and play all the guitars acoustically. If they're not good acoustically, don't waste your time buying it and thinking that changing the pickups is going to make a difference, because the odds are not great. It might. And there's a great record that's been made with guitars that don't appear to have any wonderful properties at all. So there's no hard rules. But if it's not acoustic, if it doesn't sound great, and like in terms of teles, Vince Gill's main white tele, that thing just has a voice. Ray Flack's tele that he had over the years. A lot of these guitars that the one that Robin Ford, that 6061 one, all those guitars were just magic, unplugged, and of course they were magic amplified.
What does it come down to, though? Is it mostly the wood, and do the components like the bridge have a minimal effect on the sound?
Everything affects it.
Everything affects.
So one of the other things, sound. So that was looks. Okay, sound is if you look at any object, a bell, it has a resonant frequency, and it has either a complex resonant frequency or a simpler resonant frequency. And there are these primary peaks, and then as you go up the frequency, they get smaller and closer together. Those change depending on mass, which is weight, stiffness, which is modulus elasticity, and damping, which is how much it absorbs, how much sound dissipates over time. And then there's the interaction of that. When you put the control plate on, you're changing all that stuff. If you change the bridge on an acoustic guitar, if you put something of a different weight on or a different stiffness, that guitar is going to sound different. Maybe nobody will hear it. Everything. I mean, people are now all wound up about hide glue, which we use in the shop. We use every kind of glue in its exact right application. No, what we consider is the right application.
That's all that matters, really, right?
It's what we think.
Yeah.
What we say. We say this. And I got on the such and such group and said, but glue conducts sound or doesn't interfere with sound. So everything matters. And then playability matters in the sense that what I discovered, I was kind of like the first guy who went on a limb and really put the Plek machine to work. There was a shop in England that was using one, but we really went all in on it after I made fun of it before seeing it. I was like,
now you're a partner in the company.
I am a partner, because once I got to see it, once I got to use it, it was like, okay, me, the know-it-all, was so sure what this did do and didn't do, and actually I was wrong about everything. And that if all you could do was scan a neck and see what was really going on. Of course, you're doing it under string tension, so you see what really is going on. You see what the strings see, and what the strings see is everything. The string is the customer, the player is the partner, and the repair guy is the least important. He's the taxi driver, But all those things matter. And if a string is able to, assuming you use good strings, and we spend a lot of time thinking about what are good strings that our customers like, because I don't care if a new string company comes along and they're hand wound and they're done in the dark in Finland. If the players here, and that's the great thing about Nashville, if the players don't like it and don't still like it 6 months later, it's not good enough. Yeah. So anyway, we started looking at the difference between the sound of guitars when everything was optimized, even in the fretboard. Truss rod tightness has something to do with the way a neck sounds. We started looking at how all that stuff worked together, and it makes a big difference in sound. So to answer your question 40 minutes later, a Telecaster has its own character. It's impacted by a bunch of stuff. And what I learned building was that you could even use the same piece of wood, a different part of the same piece of wood, the body for this one, for the body for that one, and the same with the neck, but there's enough that changed that you'd get two completely different guitars. Not completely different compared to a solid walnut, such and such, but enough different that you couldn't hand one to a great player in the dark and go, this is the same guitar. You could set it up exactly the same, but you'd hand it to them and they'd go, no, it's a brother, it's a cousin, but it's not the same guitar. So that colors what, every bridge matters, saddles matter. We just rolled out these things called Groove Master saddles that have tele saddle. They're saddles with little straight grooves, not what Fender used, which were at an angle, which caused strings to sitar a little bit because the string is hitting one wall of it at an angle, but straight grooves. The way the strings sit in those grooves has has an effect on what voices those strings. We didn't sell them that way. We didn't tell people, oh, this is going to be great because they're grooves. But like Robin Ford's tele, Robin has one of those teles that has the really micro thread. It's called all thread, but it was a very close thing. And I always thought that those 6061 teles sounded great. The sound of the string in the saddles. So everything like that.
Everything matters.
Everything matters.
I've seen those tele saddles, and I thought about putting them on my tele. I put on compensated saddles probably a decade ago on my main tele. And I go, I should try these out. But then I go, if I'm not bothered by my tele, should I mess with it?
I totally agree with you. If things are good enough, they're good enough.
Just leave it.
Might get better, might be worse.
Yeah.
Because no one thing, what I found when I was building guitars, if I took the ideal body and the ideal neck and if it's going to be rosewood fingerboard, the ideal fingerboard and the ideal bridge, I might get something that's a dog. Because it's not, it's like if you're dating and you go, okay, I want a girl, or a girl, whatever your preference is, and I want my mate to be this tall and have this kind of hair and blah, blah, blah. And then you find somebody like that. That doesn't make it happen at all. And you look at the number, I happen to been somebody who dated women, and I talk to women, about, and my friends, they say, you're a loser, Joe. Never. No. The answer is still no. No, they, I hear them go, well, I tried online dating. I said, well, what were your preferences? Well, tall, dark, and handsome, head of hair and all this stuff. You look at who they end up with, and it's nothing like that at all. And if that was the way that the world worked, bald guys would all be single, and they're not. And so guitars are the same way. If you plan to play it as opposed to collecting, and I hope we get to talk about the whole collecting world, because I'm very interested in that. But if you plan to play it, you got to throw away this idea that looks are going to be something that you can absolutely achieve. Now, you might be like one of these people who only wants to play. I've got a customer who, great bass player who plays Sonic Blue, everything. That's her color, Sonic Blue. She's been lucky to find some great Sonic Blue instruments. But if that's the criteria, you're taking yourself down to 10% of something, and that's not a good bet in instruments.
Yeah, right.